Yeehaw and welcome to June on the Range. This is Dishelved with Adam White. I'm going to be taking part in Michael K. Vaughan's excellent booktube event, June on the Range. It's also my favorite booktube event. I really like reading westerns, and for some reason I just don't seem to get around to it as much as I should. So this is always a great excuse for me to get into westerns. Uh, Last year I had a lot of success at the westerns I read. They were all excellent in one way or another, and I just kind of picked them randomly. I got some random books. I got a bundle of them on eBay of some westerns, and every one I read just turned out to be excellent. So I really lucked out on the ones I read last year. This year, my first one is called Then Came Mulvane, and it's by William Human. And it wasn't excellent, but it was really good. Uh, there wasn't. It was a standard western. Let me read you what it says on the back. Range war was coming, days of gun smoke and blood. Then the stranger came, alone, a tall, lean man with a smile on his lips and the chill of death in his eyes. The name's Mulvane, he said, and Rawdon knew the trouble had started. I've come to do a job, he said, and Rawdon knew it would never be the same again. So uh, basically, the gist of the plot is that um, there's these nesters coming into a town. Nesters is what they call them. They come in and tear up the land that cattle graze on and plant gardens and stuff like that and build homes and just basically ruin grazing land. And it's not good land for crops anyway, so they're really just kind of wasting their time. But a ton of people are going to move in and take over cattle land that a bunch of cattlemen don't want to happen because it's their grazing land, and these people are going to take it over and ruin it. So the Cattlemen's Association hires Mulvane to come in and dissuade the nesters from setting up shop there and to get them to move on to another place. Well, of course, the nesters don't want to go to another place. They've been promised land here at Rawdon and the surrounding area, and they think they've got the rights to go in and take over the land there. But the cattlemen want no part of that, so they bring Mulvane in to do whatever he has to do, with or without guns, to keep these people out. So that's the setup. That all you get all that in the first chapter or so. That's the whole setup for this thing. And Mulvane meets a nester girl who leaves the nest of people in their wagons and stuff, and she takes a shining to him and he likes her, and so there's a little bit of a love story going on in the middle of it. Not much of one, but a little bit. And it gives him something to think about as to whether he wants to continue to do what he's doing. And because he's a drifter that just kind of goes from town to town and does things like this, basically, he gets people to not show up where they're not wanted. And he's a good gunfighter, and just he comes across early on as not a very nice guy, but you get to like him better as the book goes on, and you get to see a little bit more of his personality as the story unfolds. There's double crossing, triple crossing. It just everybody's got an agenda in this book, and it really is an interesting read. Like I said, I didn't see anything in it that made it like super excellent, but it was still really good. I really enjoyed it. It's a short book, doesn't take long to read. I will say I wish back in the day when these came out, this one came out in 59. I wish they would have made the type a little bit bigger for my poor sad eyes because it makes it kind of hard to read these for me, but I got through. But I've got some other ones coming up too, and they're all from the same batch, so we'll see how they turn out. But anyway, he of course ends up in fights, and they've got uh, trouble with the Nesters, trouble with the Cattlemen's Association, people working behind the scenes against each other. It's really interesting. There's a lot going on in this book. And I don't want to say a whole lot more about it because I don't want to give anything away. Because it is a decent book, and I do recommend reading it. You'll have to come by it secondhand, like I did. I'm pretty sure it's not on Kindle, but I haven't looked. But I don't think it is. A lot of these old westerns, you just kind of have to get as they were originally mass market paperbacks. And like I said, this one was from '59, so I got it. A lot of times they only had one printing. So anyway, good book. Then came Mulvane by William Heumann. So you can see his name there. Uh, I did enjoy this book. Like I said, it took me a little bit to get into it, but and it was a fairly standard western, but in a good way, because you get all the things you want when you read a western, and it was a fun book. It really was. Okay, I also want to do an update on my World's Finest project finally. I've been working on the second volume of the Golden Age Superman omnibus. I've got it on my Kindle, so I don't have anything to show you. I got it in the they had two paperback volumes that made up uh, the full hardback edition, and I got them for like $5 each on Kindle on a deal day. And I've been reading the first two volumes now. 3 through 7 I've got in the hardcovers, so I'll have something to show you then. Anyway, I've been reading volume 2, and so far it's kind of more of the same of volume 1. He fights a lot of racketeers. Racketeering was apparently a very big thing because he sure finds a lot of them to fight. And again, there's no supervillains so far. And so it really isn't a test for his abilities. He still can't fly. He's still doing the peeping Tom thing in the windows. And he will hide in a room. He'll jump up above the front door and push himself up against the door frame and hide on the ceiling and have people walk under him and not notice him. And just, some of that stuff. But he fights stuff. He fights people that are just regular guys that don't stand a chance against him. My favorite one, and I say that facetiously, was he fought a couple of carnies from a carnival because they played a game and got swindled, and Lois didn't get the big stuffed animal prize. And I'm thinking, is that really a job for Superman? I mean, really, come on. Encyclopedia Brown would just say that's a waste of time to focus on a couple of carnies that'll swindle you out of a stuffed animal. So I don't think that's really a job for Superman, but for some reason it made up a whole issue of the comic. So, needless to say, he did prevail, and the carnies were duly punished. There was another time where he saved Lois from a car that was going off a cliff that had bad guys in it. He let the bad guys die, and of course said, well, that's, that's what the choice they made for themselves, and they got what they deserved. Again, that's something that's kind of not really Superman. He'd save everybody. So there's still a little bit of that going on. Not a whole lot, but it does occasionally happen. And otherwise, it was just more of the same from Volume 1. I'm really hoping they introduce some supervillains pretty soon, because uh, him fighting racketeers only goes so far. But like I said, he does prevail against a couple of, you know, swindling carnies. So uh, justice does prevail, and he he gets the job done. So uh, and of course he's constantly trying to keep his identity a secret from Lois and all that kind of stuff that makes Superman Superman. And anyway, so that's kind of where I'm at on the World's Finest project with the Golden Age stuff. I'm hoping it picks up pretty soon, because like I said, it's getting a little stale. I will also say that the artwork wasn't as good in Volume 2 as it was in Volume 1. I really liked the artwork in Volume 1. In Volume 2, it got kind of lazy, which I know these guys were on stiff deadlines and had to really rush through. And so, I mean, I understand it, but the faces just weren't very finished. Um, and even a lot of the covers were kind of half done. So I didn't like the art as well this time. It was still Siegel and Schuster. They probably had some help getting it done on the artwork, I'm guessing, uh, which probably accounts for the kind of slapdash manner that some of the issues are put together. But it was still enjoyable. It's great as a historical document. I'm glad I have them. But I'm hoping for some supervillains soon, because the racketeers are getting old. But anyway, that's my update on my World's Finest project. That's also Then Came Mulvane for the first part of June on the Range. So if you haven't read a Western before, or even if you have and love them, now's a great time to read a Western. Check out Michael K. Vaughan's channel for more on June on the Range. Really great event. I'm glad to take part in it. And thank you for hanging out with me this week, and I will see you next week.